After my baby was born early, I texted the family group chat, "We're in the NICU, please pray." My name is Clara, and I'm 32 years old. It was 2:17 a.m. The hospital room was dark. The only light came from the glowing green numbers on the monitor. The only sound was the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen machine. My hands were trembling so hard I had to type the message 3 times. I finally wrote it out and sent it to my family group chat. "Baby arrived early. We're in the NICU. Please pray for him." My son Noah was born 13 weeks early. He was only 27 weeks. He weighed just 2 pounds. He was so small. I hit send. I stared at the delivered receipt under my message. My heart was pounding against my ribs. "Please, just write back. Please, Mom. Please, Dad. Just say something." A minute passed. It felt like an hour. 5 minutes passed. The silence in the room felt heavy, like a blanket I couldn't breathe under. 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. I gasped and sobbed with relief. I fumbled for the phone. But it wasn't a prayer. It wasn't a question. It was a photo. My Aunt Marjorie, my father's sister, was at a charity gala. She was wearing a black dress and a diamond necklace that cost more than my house. She was smiling, holding a glass of champagne. Her text said, "So proud to represent our family tonight." My stomach went cold. I scrolled down. My mother, my own mother, had replied to Marjorie's photo, a single red heart emoji. My baby was 2 pounds and fighting for his life. And my family was at a party. That was the moment I knew. My baby wasn't the only one fighting for life. Our family's humanity was on life support. That night was just the beginning of the end. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe and drop a comment, where are you watching from? I grew up in an old Virginia family. We were obsessed with 2 things, money and image. We weren't a family. We were a brand. Christmas cards were not about Jesus. They were about showing the world our perfect, matching cashmere sweaters. Family dinners were not about talking. They were about practicing what to say at my father's next foundation dinner. My father, Charles, didn't raise children. He managed assets. I felt like I was a low-performing stock. He ran the family foundation, which meant he gave away just enough money to get his name on buildings. My mother, Ellen, was his partner. Her job was to make sure everything looked beautiful, even when it was rotting from the inside. She curated our home like an art gallery. Cold, perfect. No one was allowed to touch anything. And then there was Aunt Marjorie. She was the self-proclaimed matriarch. She was the CEO of our family's reputation. We had rules. Rule 1, you never cry in public. Rule 2, you never talk about unpleasant things. Unpleasant meant anything real. Sickness, sadness, fear. I was the quiet one. The sweet disappointment. Why? Because I went to a state college. Because I married Evan, my college boyfriend. Evan is a high school history teacher. He is the kindest, most wonderful man I have ever met. In my family, that just meant he was poor. My older sister, Grace, was the success. She married a man with a trust fund. She was thin, blonde, and completely empty inside. My parents adored her. She knew how to pose for pictures. I learned the rules the hard way 2 years ago, when I had a miscarriage. I was 12 weeks along. I was bleeding. I was broken. I called my mother, sobbing. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Oh, Clara, how unfortunate." Unfortunate. Like spilling wine on a white rug. The next day, she called me back. "I hope you're not planning to post anything sad on social media, Clara," she said. Her voice was sharp. "It's just not good for the family image. It makes people uncomfortable. I had just lost a baby. They were worried about Facebook. I didn't post anything. I didn't tell anyone. I just cried alone. Evan held me, but I felt like I had no family. So when I got pregnant with Noah, I was careful. I didn't tell them right away. But when my water broke at 27 weeks, when the doctors were rushing me into surgery for an emergency C-section, I was stupid. I thought this time would be different. This was not a miscarriage. This was a living baby, a tiny fighting baby in a plastic box. This had to be real enough for them. This time they would have to care. I was so wrong. The NICU is another planet. It doesn't smell like a hospital. It smells like hand sanitizer and metal. The air hums. It's never ever quiet. There is a constant sound of beeps, hisses, and alarms. The lights are always on. There is no day. There is no night. There is only now. My baby Noah didn't look like a baby. He looked like a tiny bruised bird. His skin was red and sticky, almost transparent. I could see the tiny blue veins in his head. Wires came out of his chest. A tube went down his throat to help him breathe. Another tube went into his belly button to feed him. He was 2 pounds. I had a carton of milk in my fridge that weighed more. I couldn't hold him for the first 3 days. I just sat in a hard plastic chair next to his incubator. I watched him through the plastic box. I watched the numbers on his monitor. Heart rate. Oxygen. I prayed for those numbers to stay stable. I lived there. I didn't go home. I slept in a vinyl recliner chair in the corner of the room, the one that smelled like bleach. I pumped breast milk every 3 hours. My body was sore and empty from the surgery, but I did it. The nurses said it was liquid gold. It was the one thing I could do for him. It was the only way I could feel like his mother. The nurses became my only family. They were kind. They taught me how to put my hand inside the incubator holes. I couldn't pick him up, but I could touch his foot. I would just rest my finger against his tiny heel. Evan was amazing. My husband. He would come straight from work, still in his teacher clothes. He would sit with me for hours. He read Harry Potter to Noah through the plastic. His voice was hoarse and tired, but he did it every night. "He needs to know our voices, Clara," he'd say. But Evan had to go back to work. We needed the insurance. The bills were already starting. He would kiss me goodbye at 10 p.m., his face full of worry. And then I would be alone again. Just me, the machines, and the other silent, terrified mothers. For the first week, I kept trying with my family. I sent updates to the group chat. I thought, maybe they just didn't know what to say. I sent a text. "He gained 10 grams today." No reply. I sent another. He opened his eyes. My sister Grace replied, "Aw." 5 minutes later, she sent a link to a shoe sale. Should I get these? I tried again. A few days later, the doctors did something amazing. They took Noah off the ventilator. He was breathing on his own. I was crying so hard with joy. I took a picture of his face. His eyes open, no tube. I sent it to the group chat. "He's breathing on his own. He's a fighter," my mother replied. Not a phone call, a text. "That's nice, dear. Don't overexert yourself. You look tired in that photo. You look tired." Not a, "How is he?" Not, "That's wonderful news." Not, "We are so proud of him." Not, "We love you." Just, "You look tired." I was still sending updates. I don't know why. I guess I was desperate for a sign that they cared. Then Noah had a bad day. A terrible day. He was 10 days old. His lungs collapsed. The alarms on his monitor all went off at once. They were loud and terrifying. Doctors and nurses rushed in. They yelled, "Code Blue!" They pushed me out of the way. "Ma'am, you have to step back." I stood in the corner, my hands over my mouth, watching them work on my tiny, tiny son. I watched his chest stop moving. I thought he was going to die. He made it. He barely made it. They got him breathing again. They had to put the ventilator tube back in. I was shaking for hours. I couldn't even stand up. That night, I was sitting by his incubator, my hand against the plastic. I was scrolling on my phone, just trying to see something normal. I saw Aunt Marjorie's Facebook. There she was, on a golf course. She was wearing a pink polo shirt and a white visor. She was holding a large silver trophy. Her smile was huge. The caption said, "Another win for the foundation. Such a stressful but rewarding day. So glad I could help." Underneath, there were 50 comments. My mother, "Wonderful, Marjorie. You are a star." My father, "Great work for the family." My sister, "Love that outfit, Auntie." Stressful, rewarding, my son coded. He coded twice. I looked at her smiling, proud face. I looked at all the likes from my family. They were all there. I went back to our group chat. I typed, "Noah almost died today." My thumb hovered over the send button. My son was fighting for his life, and my family was playing golf. I deleted the message. I looked at the screen for a long time. Then I went into the group chat settings. I pressed mute notifications. I stopped sending updates. They didn't deserve them. It was the 4th week. I was not a person anymore. I was a machine. Wake up, pump, sanitize, wash, touch Noah's foot. Watch the monitors, pump, eat a protein bar, pump, try to sleep. I was living in a fog of beeps, bleach, and exhaustion. I was sitting in the pumping room. It was a small, windowless closet with 4 chairs and 4 hospital-grade breast pumps. It was 3 a.m., I was alone, hooked up to the machine. The sound was a rhythmic, awful watch-hug, watch-hug. I stared at the wall. My body ached. My C-section scar was on fire. I was so tired I felt like I was floating above my own body. My phone buzzed on the table next to me. For a second, a stupid, hollow part of me hoped. Hope is a hard thing to kill. I thought maybe it's my mom. Maybe she's finally asking if I'm okay. It was the group chat. I had muted it, but the notification still popped up on my lock screen. My heart didn't sink. It didn't break, it just stopped. It was my sister, Grace. She had sent a picture of a new handbag. It was a bright, quilted, expensive-looking bag. Her caption was, "Retail therapy after a stressful week." A stressful week. I looked at the picture of her shiny new bag. Then I thought about my week. I thought about the day Noah's alarms went off. I thought about the doctors running in. I thought about my baby's face turning a shade of blue I will see in my nightmares forever. I thought about the doctor, a kind man with tired eyes telling me his right lung collapsed. We had to put a chest tube in. He is a very sick little boy, Clara. My baby almost died. My sister bought a purse. I stared at the screen. I stared at the picture of the bag and the stupid smiling emoji she used. Something inside me didn't break. It snapped. It was a clean, cold snap. Like a frozen branch breaking. The outline of my life. The one where I tried to get their attention. Where I begged for their love. That outline just evaporated. I didn't cry. I was too tired to cry. I didn't reply. I just unplugged myself from the pump, bottled the milk, and walked back to my son. I put my hand in the incubator and stroked his tiny, perfect head. "It's just you and me and Dad, baby," I whispered. "That's all it is? And that's okay." I decided I was done. I was done begging for love from people who only knew how to pose for it. A few days later, my phone rang. It was not a text. It was an actual call. The name on the screen was Ben, my cousin Ben. Ben was the only decent one in the family. He was the other disappointment. He was a musician in Philadelphia. He didn't have a trust fund. My family treated him like a charming lost cause. I hadn't spoken to him in months. My hands were shaking as I answered. "Clara?" he said. His voice was full of static and confusion. "Ben?" I whispered. I started to cry. It was the first time I'd heard a family member's voice in a month. "Clara, my God, what is going on?" he said. "I've been texting you. I've been calling your mom and Aunt Marjorie. They said you weren't taking calls. I'm at the hospital," I said, sobbing. "Ben, my baby was born. He was born early. He's in the NICU." There was a long silence on his end. "Clara," he said slowly, "your baby was born." "When?" "A month ago," I choked out. 4 weeks ago." "What?" His voice was sharp. "A month? Clara, what are you talking about?" "I texted everyone," I said, my voice getting frantic. I texted the group chat. I told them he was in the NICU. They didn't. They just ignored it. Ignored it? Ben sounded completely lost. "Clara, Aunt Marjorie told the whole family a different story." My blood went cold. "What story?" She told everyone you were having a mental health crisis. That you were struggling? That you were emotionally unstable." I couldn't breathe. What? "She told us all that you were having a really hard time with the pregnancy, and that you had to be hospitalized for your own mental health. She said the doctors told you to isolate, and that you didn't want to see or talk to anyone. She said you didn't want visitors." The words hit me like slaps. Emotionally unstable, isolate, didn't want visitors. "Ben," I said, my voice hard and cold, "that's a lie." "I know," he said. "I'm figuring that out now, but oh my God, Clara. She told us to respect your privacy. She said you weren't well. Respect your privacy." It was the perfect lie. A lie that made them all look so good, so concerned, so caring. We're just giving poor Clara her space. She's so fragile. It wasn't neglect. It was an alibi. They didn't ignore me. They erased me. They erased my son. They took my greatest pain and my son's biggest fight, and they twisted it into a story about me being crazy. It protected their perfect world. They didn't have to go to a scary hospital. They didn't have to see a sick baby. All they had to do was nod and say, "How tragic for poor, emotional Clara." "Ben," I said, "she's been posting about parties." "I know," he said. His voice was dark. "I'm getting in my car. I'll be there in 3 hours." I hung up the phone. The fog of exhaustion was gone. For the first time in a month, I was wide awake. And I was angry. I was a different kind of angry. A cold, clean, sharp-edged angry. They didn't just forget me. They buried me. That night, I did something I had never done. I didn't cry. I didn't hide. I took charge. I opened the family group chat. I saw the picture of Grace's handbag. I saw Marjorie's party photos. And I started a video call. Not a text. Not a phone call. A video call? I wanted to see their faces. I wanted them to see mine. One by one, they joined. My mother's face appeared. She was in her perfect cream-colored living room. Pearls, of course. My father's face appeared. He was in his dark wood-paneled study. He looked annoyed, like I had interrupted him. Grace's face appeared. She was in her car, her makeup perfect. And finally, Aunt Marjorie. She was in her sitting room, a glass of white wine in her hand. Her smile was bright and fake. "Clara, darling," she began. "What a surprise. We've been so worried," my mother chimed in. "Clara, you look exhausted. We were told not to bother you. We thought it was best to give you space." "Space?" I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. "You mean silence?" Their smiles flickered. "Now, Clara," my father started, his voice in that low, warning tone. "We were just respecting what Marjorie told us." "What did she tell you?" I asked. "That you were unstable," I said, not letting them answer. "That you were having a breakdown. That I was not allowed to have visitors." Marjorie's smile faltered. "Clara, darling, we were protecting you. You've always been so emotional." "Stop," I said. And they all did. I had never used that voice before. "I'm going to show you something," I said. "And you are all going to look." I stood up from the hard plastic chair. I turned my phone's camera around. I walked the 3 feet to the incubator. I pushed the camera right up to the glass. The phone focused on my son. It focused on the tube in his nose, the IV in his tiny hand, the monitors flashing his heart rate. The beep, beep, beep of the machine was the only sound in the video call. "This," I said, "is Noah." I turned the camera back to myself. I held it up to my face. I let them see the bags under my eyes, the matted hair, the raw pain. He has been alive for 5 weeks. He has been fighting for his life, every single second, for 32 days. And for 32 days, none of you called. None of you came. None of you even asked his name. My father's face went white. He looked sick. Marjorie said, "She lied." I interrupted. "She lied. And you all believed her. You believed I was unstable because it was easier. It was easier than this." I pointed the camera back at Noah. "It was easier than seeing this. This is real. This is not a gala. This is not a handbag. This is my son." I looked at Marjorie. Her face was tight. The fake smile was gone. "Clara," she said, her voice like ice, "you are being hysterical. We were only thinking of you." "No," I said. "You were not thinking of me. You were not thinking of him. You were protecting your image. You were protecting your perfect, clean world where babies aren't born sick and daughters don't make a scene. Well, I'm making a scene. For the first time in my entire life, not one of them had anything to say. They just stared. I ended the call. The 2 days after the video call were the loudest silence I had ever experienced. After I ended the call, I sat on the hard plastic chair, shaking. My adrenaline was gone. I just felt cold and empty. I had done it. I had finally said it. I had burned down the paper house my family lived in. I expected to feel relief. I just felt terrified. Evan found me like that an hour later, just staring at Noah's incubator. He had come back after his work meeting. He took one look at my face and said, "What happened?" I told him. I told him every word. The video call. The incubator. The lies about me being unstable. He didn't say, "You did the right thing." He didn't say, "That was brave." He just got a very, very cold look in his eyes. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Good. Now they know. It's just us, Clara. It's always been just us." His support was a life raft. The first day after the call, nothing happened. Not a single text. Not a call. Not even from Ben. It was a new kind of silence. It wasn't neglect anymore. This was an angry silence. This was the silence of a family punishing a child who had misbehaved. The old familiar guilt started to creep in. I went too far. I embarrassed them. I am a bad daughter. I was at Noah's side watching him sleep. The nurse, a kind woman named Jackie, was changing his IV line. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said quietly, her hands busy and sure. I had a fight with my family, I whispered. The ones who never come? She asked. I nodded. Honey, she said, taping the line to his tiny arm, let me tell you something. You're a NICU mom now. You are a mama bear. You don't have time for anyone who makes you feel small. Your job is him. She tapped the incubator. You did what you had to do. Her words were better than any medicine. I took a deep breath. She was right. The second day, my phone buzzed. It was a text. From my father. My heart hammered against my ribs. It said, Clara, I am coming to the hospital. I am bringing someone. We will be there in an hour. I went into a full-blown panic. Someone. Who was someone? Was it my mother coming to scream at me? Was it Aunt Marjorie coming to tell me I was disowned? Was it a lawyer? I was shaking so hard I could barely text Evan. My father is coming. He's bringing someone. I'm scared. My phone rang instantly. It was Evan. I'm leaving work. I'm on my way. Do not see them alone. Wait for me. I waited by the main NICU doors, my heart in my throat. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was 10 years old again, waiting outside the principal's office. Evan burst through the doors breathless. He hadn't even stopped to take off his teacher lanyard. He grabbed my hand. I'm here. 2 minutes later, the main door slid open again. It was my father. He looked awful. He hadn't shaved. His expensive suit was wrinkled like he had slept in it. He looked 20 years older. And he was not with my mother, Ellen. He was not with Aunt Marjorie. He was with a woman I had never seen in my life. She was probably in her late 40s, with kind, tired eyes and simple brown hair. She was holding a small brown stuffed bear. Evan squeezed my hand. A solid wall. My father, Charles, walked up to me. He stopped 3 feet away. Clara, he whispered. His voice was gravel. Who is this? I asked. My voice was flat. I was too numb to be angry. My father looked at the floor. He couldn't meet my eyes. This is Anne. He took a breath. She is my partner. The floor fell out from under me. Partner? What about my mother? The perfect hostess? The one with the pearls? The woman, Anne, stepped forward. Her voice was soft. Clara, I'm so sorry about your son. I'm a nurse at a different hospital. Charles, he told me what was happening. Weeks ago, I'm the one who told him he had to come. That this was a disgrace. I just stared at my father. What about Mom? He finally looked up. His eyes were red. Your mother and I... That call was the end? I left Clara. You left her? She and Marjorie, he said, his voice full of a new, cold anger. After your call, I finally saw it. They weren't horrified about Noah. They weren't ashamed of the lie. They were just furious. Furious that you embarrassed them. That you made them look bad. That was all they cared about. He shook his head. I'm done, Clara. I am so done living a lie. That life. It's a prison. This was the twist. The lie about me was just one small part of a much bigger lie. His whole marriage. I'm sorry, he said. The words were quiet. I should have called. I should have come. I listened to Marjorie. It was easier. It was cowardly. I am so sorry. It wasn't enough. It wouldn't be enough for a long, long time. But it was real. It was the first real thing he had ever said to me. Anne, the new woman, held out the stuffed bear. We brought this for him. For Noah. They knew his name. Do you want to meet him? I whispered. The nurse, Jackie, came over. They can, if they scrub in. I watched them. My father, the powerful Charles, and this quiet woman, Anne. They stood at the deep sinks. They scrubbed their hands and arms for 3 solid minutes, just like the surgeons do. They put on the thin yellow paper gowns. They put on masks. They looked sterile and small and human. They walked back. My father stood over the incubator. He's so small, he whispered, his voice cracking. He's a fighter, Evan said, his voice hard. Can I? My father asked. Jackie nodded. Just open the latch. You can put your hand in. Don't stroke him. His skin is too sensitive. Just let him hold your finger. My father fumbled with the plastic latch. He slid his big, clean hand inside. He slowly, so slowly, put his index finger against Noah's tiny, paper-thin hand. Noah, in his sleep, his tiny reflexes kicking in, curled his 5 fingers around my father's 1. It was the smallest gesture. My father made a sound. A small, choked, broken sound deep in his chest. He didn't turn away. He didn't hide his face. He just stood there, his shoulders shaking, as silent tears ran down his face and dripped onto the paper gown. For the first time in my life, I watched my father cry without hiding it. Anne cried too, her hand on his back. I didn't cry. I didn't feel forgiveness. I didn't feel joy. I just felt empty. But it was a start. It was something real. We brought Noah home 3 weeks later. The day we left the NICU, all the nurses, my real family, came to say goodbye. They clapped for us. They were crying. I was crying. They had saved my son's life. Going home was terrifying. Our house felt too big, too quiet. There were no beeps. There were no monitors. Evan and I just sat on the sofa for hours, staring at Noah in his bassinet. He was still so small, just 5 pounds. He came home on a heart monitor just in case. The tiny, blinking green light was my new religion. For a week, the world was just the 3 of us. Evan's parents had sent a care package. Food, diapers, soft blankets. My friend from college sent a gift card for a cleaning service. From my father and Anne, there were groceries. They didn't call. They just appeared on our doorstep. Bags of food, cases of water, a giant box of diapers. They were trying in their own quiet, clumsy way. From my mother, my sister, and Aunt Marjorie, nothing. The silence was total. It was like they had never existed. I learned from Ben that my mother and Marjorie had gone to Europe. They were managing the foundation's overseas accounts. They ran away. They couldn't handle the new reality. They couldn't handle the crack in their perfect fake world. They chose the image right to the very end. I felt relieved. Then, a week after we got home, the doorbell rang. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Evan was back at work. I was exhausted. I was wearing an old milk-stained bathrobe. My hair was in a greasy bun. I looked at the new video doorbell Evan had installed, and my blood went cold. It was Aunt Marjorie. She was not in Europe. She was on my doorstep. She was wearing a perfectly pressed white linen suit, pearls, red lipstick. She looked perfect. She looked like a predator. She was holding a large, embossed, cream-colored envelope. I stared at the screen. My first instinct was to hide, to pretend I wasn't home. Then I looked at Noah, sleeping in his bassinet, the mama bear. I pressed the talk button on the intercom. My voice came out flat. "What do you want, Marjorie?" She was startled. She looked up at the camera, her fake smile instantly snapping into place. "Clara, darling," she cooed. Her voice was like sugar-coated poison. "Thank goodness. I've been so worried. Your mother and I, we just didn't know what to do. You know how emotional you get. You just disappeared." The gaslighting. It was so fast, so automatic I almost had to laugh. "I didn't disappear, Marjorie. I was in the NICU. You knew that." "Oh, semantics," she said, waving her hand. "Listen, I'm here to fix this. To put it all behind us." She held the cream-colored envelope up to the camera. "I've arranged a donation in Noah's name for the foundation. A very, very generous one. We're going to put his name on a small plaque in the new children's wing. It's all taken care of. A beautiful gesture, don't you think? Now buzz me in. I want to see this baby. This baby. Not my grandnephew, not Noah. This baby." Like he was a problem to be solved. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to transact. This was a business deal. She was buying my silence. She was trying to erase her behavior with a plaque. All the fear I ever had of her, it just evaporated. "No." Marjorie's smile flickered. She laughed, a high-pitched, brittle sound. "Clara, don't be silly. I'm here to fix this. I have a check. I don't want your check, Marjorie." "You think a check fixes this?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You think you can put my son's name on a wall and that makes up for it? That makes up for you lying? For you playing golf while my son was coding?" "I told you," she snapped, her voice finally losing its sugary coating. "You were unwell. We were protecting you from yourself." "You were protecting yourselves," I said. "You were protecting your image. You lied to the whole family. You told them I was unstable." Her face changed. The mask was off. Her eyes were cold, hard stones. Her voice was like steel. "Clara, don't be ridiculous. Don't throw your entire family away over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I actually laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "You're right. I did misunderstand. I thought you were family. I am your aunt," she hissed. "I am the head of this family. Now you let me in right now." I looked down at Noah. He was stirring, his tiny hand reaching up. I looked back at the camera, and for the first time, I wasn't the sweet disappointment. I wasn't emotional Clara. I was a mother. I smiled just a little. "No, Marjorie," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "You're not the head of this family. You're just a relative." I leaned in closer to the intercom. "This," I said, "is my family. This house, me, my husband, my son." I rocked the bassinet with my foot. "We are the family. You are just a person I used to know." Her face went pale. Then it turned a dark, ugly red. "You will regret this," she shrieked. Her voice was a rasp. "You will be cut off." My father was here," I interrupted, my voice still quiet. "My father was here last week," he apologized. "He held his grandson." "Where were you, Marjorie? Where was my mother?" She was speechless. Her mouth opened and closed. "Goodbye, Marjorie." I ended the call. I turned off the intercom. A second later, the doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again, and again, and again. Then she started banging, pounding on my front door with her fist. "Clara, Clara! You let me in! You ungrateful little—" I just sat on my sofa. I picked up my son. I held him close. I breathed in his milky, perfect smell. And I waited. After a full minute of banging, she stopped. I heard her stomp back down the walkway. A car door slammed. An engine revved. And then she was gone. It was quiet. It was just me, my baby, and the sound of the house settling. It was peace. A year passed. A year of firsts. First smile. First laugh. First time he rolled over. It was also a year of terror. Every cough sent me into a panic. Every fever was a trip to the emergency room. Noah was small for his age, but he was tough. He was a fighter. He had my husband's calm eyes and my new sharp-edged spine. My life was completely different. My relationship with my father was quiet. He and Anne came over every Sunday. They didn't come to talk. They didn't try to make me forgive them. They just showed up. Anne would come into the kitchen and just start washing the bottles I had left in the sink. My father, Charles, the man who used to run million-dollar foundations, would sit on the floor. He learned how to play with a baby. He was clumsy. He was awkward. But he was there. One day, I found him on the floor, on his hands and knees, letting Noah, who had just learned to crawl, pull his expensive glasses off his face. My father just laughed. A real, genuine laugh. He was a grandfather. I hadn't forgiven him. Not really. How do you forgive decades of neglect? But I had accepted. I accepted this new version of him. A man who was finally trying. My real family, though, was my new group chat. It wasn't my mother or my sister. It was Sarah, Maya, and Jen, my NICU moms, my battle sisters. We texted every day. "Is this Rash normal? He's not sleeping. I'm going crazy. Send coffee. He just pulled himself up. I'm crying." We were a small, fierce tribe. We had been through a fire together. We were the only ones who understood. We were the ones who knew what it felt like to watch your baby fight for his life. They were my sisters. We decided to throw a big party for Noah's first birthday. It was a huge milestone. 1 year, we had made it. I sent an invitation to Ben. He texted back instantly, "I'll be there. I'm bringing him a tiny guitar." I sent one to my father and Anne. They texted back, "We are so excited." "What can we bring?" I paused. I looked at my phone. I thought about my mother, Ellen, and my sister Grace. I hadn't spoken to them in a year. I heard they were back from Europe. I heard they were furious at my father for leaving. I heard they were telling everyone I was the one who broke up the family. I felt nothing. A small, sad ache for the mother I wished I had. But mostly, just empty relief. I did not send them an invitation. The day of the party was chaos. My house was small. It was not a Virginia mansion. It was a 1,500-square-foot ranch house. My father and Anne came early. Anne, without being asked, went straight to the kitchen and started cutting fruit for a platter. My father was on the floor, trying to blow up balloons and failing miserably. He was red-faced and laughing. Ben arrived next. He was loud and wonderful. "There's the man of the hour," he yelled, lifting Noah into the air. He gave me a hug that almost broke my ribs. "You did it, Clara. He's amazing." Then my tribe arrived. Sarah, with her twins, Liam and Lily. Maya with her daughter Ava. And Jen with her son Leo. 5 miracle babies, all 1 year old, all of whom had beaten the odds. The house was bursting. It wasn't the old, cold, full of my childhood parties. It was loud. Babies were crying. Toddlers were grabbing at the cake. There were no hashtags. There were no speeches. There were no professional cameras. We ate chili out of paper bowls. We drank cheap beer. Noah, sitting in his high chair, smashed his tiny fist into his first ever cupcake. He had blue frosting in his hair, in his ears, and all over his face. He was in heaven. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the chaos. I watched my father, Charles, sitting on the sofa, letting Sarah's twin, Lily, fall asleep on his, probably very expensive, cashmere sweater. He was just stroking her hair. I watched Anne and Ben laughing in the kitchen. I watched my NICU sisters, my real sisters, sitting on the floor, not even talking, just happy to be in a room with other people who got it. This was family. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't glamorous. It was messy. It was loud. It smelled like diapers and cake. It was real. Evan came and sat on the floor next to me. He put his arm around my waist. He didn't say anything. He just watched the beautiful, wonderful mess. "You did good, Clara," he whispered. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "No," I said, watching my son laugh with a mouthful of sugar. We did good. That night, the house was finally quiet. The last paper plate was in the trash. The last deflated balloon was swept up. The house smelled like stale cake, chili, and baby powder. It smelled like life. Evan was asleep on the sofa, fully clothed, one arm hanging off the cushion. He was exhausted. He had been a rock. He had been my anchor. I was too tired to sleep, too full. I stood in the doorway of Noah's room. The lights were off, but a small, whale-shaped nightlight threw a soft blue glow over the walls. I watched my son. He was asleep in his crib, on his back, his arms thrown up above his head in total surrender. His chest, which I used to watch, terrified, for even the slightest pause, rose and fell in a deep, steady rhythm. He was breathing. He was here. He was one. I stood there and just watched him. I thought about the woman I was a year ago. She was so different. She felt like a stranger to me now. A ghost who used to live in my skin. That woman was weak. She was desperate. She was a child still in so many ways. I thought about that night in the hospital. 2:17 a.m., the hum of the machines, the smell of bleach, the terror that was so big I thought it would eat me alive. I remembered my hands. They were trembling so hard I could barely unlock my phone. I remembered typing out that message to the group chat. "Baby arrived early. We're in the NICU. Please pray for him." I replayed that moment in my head. I thought about what I was really asking for. It wasn't just prayers. I was begging. I was on my knees, metaphorically, begging my family to see me. I was saying, "Look, I am in pain. My baby is in pain. Please, just for once, stop posing for pictures. Stop talking about money. Stop worrying about the image and just be a family. Please, prove to me that I matter." It was the cry of a daughter who had spent 32 years feeling invisible. And then the reply, the silence. The long, stretching 10-minute silence that felt like a judgment. And then the buzz, the photo. Aunt Marjorie in her diamonds at a gala. I used to think that was the moment my heart broke. But standing here, in the quiet of my son's room, I realized that wasn't it. My heart didn't break. It was liberated. That picture, and my mother's heart emoji right under it. It wasn't a punishment. It was a permission slip. It was the universe, or God, or whatever you want to call it, showing me, in black and white, they will never show up for you. Not in the way you need. You can stop trying now. You can let go. For a year, I thought I needed their prayers. I thought I needed their approval. I thought I needed them. I didn't. What I needed was peace. And I could never have peace as long as I was still auditioning for a role in their play. I spent my whole life trying to get their attention. Trying to be the good daughter, the sweet disappointment. I was always quiet. I never made waves. I smiled at the parties. I pretended their coldness was just the way they were. I was chasing love from people who only know how to love reflections of themselves. My mother loved Grace because Grace was her mirror. Thin, rich, empty, perfect. Aunt Marjorie loved the foundation because it was her name, carved in stone. A monument to her own ego. They don't love people. They love accessories. And a sick baby, a daughter in pain, a hysterical woman making a scene. We were not good accessories. We were cracked mirrors. We showed the truth, and my family has always hated the truth. The truth is messy. The truth is a baby covered in wires. The truth is a mother, unshowered, exhausted, crying in a pumping closet. The truth is what was in this house today. It was loud. It was chaotic. My floor is still sticky from spilled juice. It was real. I learned the truth this year. I learned that family is not a noun. It is a verb. It's not who you are related to. It's what you do. Family is an action. It's Evan, driving to the hospital in the middle of the night, his face white with fear, but his hand steady on mine. It's Evan reading Harry Potter to a plastic box because he knew his son needed to hear his voice. It's Ben, hearing my voice and saying, "I'll be there in 3 hours." Not, "What's going on?" Not, "Are you sure? Just, I'm on my way." It's my NICU sisters. It's Sarah and Maya and Jen. It's our 3 a.m. group chat, which is not about handbags or parties, but about, is this breathing normal? I'm scared. Can you talk? That is family. It's even my father, sitting on my floor, covered in frosting, letting his grandson pull his glasses off. He is clumsy. He is awkward. He is decades too late, but he is trying. He is doing the verb. He's showing up. Blood? Blood just connects you. It's an accident. It's biology. It doesn't mean anything unless you make it mean something. Blood is the map, but it's not the journey. My mother, my sister, my aunt, they are my blood. And they are standing on the other side of a canyon, waving, and calling me ungrateful for not flying over to them. My real family. They were in the canyon with me. They had ropes. They were helping me climb. Compassion. That's what makes someone family. Compassion is the action. I walked over to the crib. Noah's tiny hand was curled into a fist. I gently put my finger in his palm. His fingers, so strong now, instinctively curled around it. I wasn't that shaking, terrified woman in the hospital anymore. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a disappointment. I wasn't their emotional Clara. I was a mother. I was a wife. I was a survivor. And I was finally at peace. Evan stirred on the sofa. He opened his eyes, blinked in the darkness. "Clara," he mumbled. "You okay?" I smiled. The first truly light, easy smile I'd felt in a year. I left Noah's room and went to sit on the floor by the sofa, leaning my head against his knee. He put his hand on my hair. "I'm okay," I whispered. "I'm great." I was no longer just a daughter. I was the head of my own family, and I was home.